What if being kind isn't a reaction to the world, but a rebellion against it? In a time where opinions are loud, tempers short, and kindness often feels like a forgotten art, there's an ancient philosophy that offers a radically different perspective: Stoicism. Today, we're exploring how the Stoic approach to kindness isn't about being passive or polite. It's about being powerful in the quietest, most intentional way. From Marcus Aurelius in The Chaos of an Empire to your modern-day interactions at work, online, and at home, kindness has always been a choice. And in this video, we'll uncover why, for the Stoics, it was one of the most courageous choices you can make. What if I told you that kindness isn't just a warm, fuzzy gesture? It's actually one of the strongest things a human being can practice. Because in today's fast-paced world, kindness is often mistaken for weakness or passivity. But to the Stoics, it was never about being soft. It was about being principled, and practicing kindness was not an emotional reaction, but a conscious act of discipline and strength, a choice to respond from your highest values rather than your lowest instincts. And in a world that constantly invites us to react with sarcasm, defensiveness, or outrage, the decision to be kind, calmly, consistently, even when it's hard, is a kind of rebellion, a way to remain rooted while the storm rages on. Stoicism, at its core, isn't about becoming emotionless or suppressing what we feel, but about mastering those emotions through reason and virtue. And thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus weren't teaching cold detachment. They were teaching clarity, control, and presence, because the Stoic doesn't deny emotions, but instead seeks to understand them and shape responses according to what's in their control. And in that gap between stimulus and response, where modern life throws constant curveballs, is the space where kindness is born, not as a reflex, but as a reflection of inner strength, which means kindness isn't a random act, but a trained response, a habit of emotional sovereignty that resists the urge to react with pettiness or pride. When we talk about kindness through the Stoic lens, we're really talking about the embodiment of their four core virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Because a kind response often requires wisdom to understand the full picture, courage to act against one's impulses, justice to treat others fairly even when we could retaliate, and temperance to hold back when our ego demands control. And while the Stoics may not have listed kindness as a standalone virtue, it is what naturally flows from the practice of all the others, making kindness not a separate path, but the visible evidence of Stoic training at work in real life. Today, we live in a world that thrives on division, distraction, and dopamine. Social media scrolls, outrage culture, news cycles designed to inflame rather than inform. And in such a world, kindness can seem outdated or even naive. But to the Stoic, the chaos of the world is exactly the test they've been training for. And whether it's being cut off in traffic, receiving rude customer service, or watching someone spiral into rage online, the Stoic doesn't respond impulsively, but reflects on the human behind the behavior, recognizing that suffering often masks itself as hostility, and that our decision to remain kind, to withhold retaliation, to stay grounded, is not a sign of weakness, but the ultimate expression of inner control. In the workplace, where ego, pressure, and competition often rule, Stoic kindness becomes both a strategy and a strength. Because when you respond to stress without spreading it, help others without needing credit, and correct mistakes without cruelty, you're practicing a form of leadership that transcends titles. And in these environments, Marcus Aurelius's principle of not even complaining to yourself becomes a secret weapon, as Stoic kindness at work looks like patience in meetings, honesty in feedback, and calm under pressure. Not because you're passive, but because you've trained yourself to act with intention, not emotion. making you both more effective and more trustworthy in the eyes of others. On social media, kindness is tested in new and strange ways because the platforms are built to provoke. Likes, shares, outrage, identity clashes, and every comment section becomes an opportunity to either lose yourself in noise or to practice restraint and clarity. And so, the Stoic approach online is to pause before replying, to ask whether engagement serves growth or simply ego, and to recognize that not every disagreement deserves attention, and not every insult requires a response, which is why digital Stoicism reminds us that kindness on the internet isn't silence or avoidance, it's discernment, and sometimes the kindest act is holding space rather than flooding it with reaction. In our closest relationships, family, partners, friends, kindness becomes the thread that binds Stoic wisdom to emotional maturity. And rather than reacting to misunderstandings with blame or retreat, the Stoic strives to listen without defensiveness, to speak with clarity instead of contempt, and to recognize that no one owes us perfect behavior or constant validation, which is why the practice of Stoicism in relationships means choosing curiosity over judgment, setting boundaries without hostility, and remembering that kindness is not weakness, but a signal of self-respect. And in this way, Stoic kindness becomes the quiet foundation that allows love to remain strong even when tested. If you want Stoic kindness to be real in your life, it can't be left to chance. It must be trained like a muscle. And one of the most powerful practices is premeditatio malorum, the Stoic habit of imagining what could go wrong each day. Not to become anxious, but to become prepared. And as you imagine the long line, the rude comment, the unexpected delay, you also imagine yourself responding with calm, with humor, with kindness, because every moment that frustrates you is also a moment that sharpens your character. And when you practice these mental rehearsals, you build emotional muscle memory, teaching yourself that kindness is not something you do when it's easy, but something you reach for even when it's not. And in the end, what you'll discover is that kindness, practiced stoically, is not about changing the world overnight. It's about changing how you meet the world every day, and slowly, over time, your quiet strength becomes noticeable, your steady presence becomes calming, and your words carry more weight because they come from a place of grounded clarity. And while the world may still be loud, reactive, and unfair, you are no longer swayed by it because kindness has become your anchor, your discipline, your practice. And as Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one, which is why today, in a world desperate for light, the Stoic path to kindness is not only possible, it is essential. So the next time the world pushes you to react, remember that your greatest power may be in how gently you respond. The Stoics didn't teach kindness because it was easy. They taught it because it was rare, and because it transforms not just the people around you, but the person you become. In a culture addicted to outrage, kindness is a radical act of clarity. It's not about being soft, it's about being steady. So take a breath, hold your ground, and go forward with the strength to be kind. Not because they deserve it, but because you've decided that's who you are. That's Stoicism, and that's the kind of strength the world truly needs. If this resonated with you, consider giving the video a like. It helps others find this message. And if you're on your own journey of living with more clarity, depth, and purpose, hit subscribe and join the community. We explore ancient wisdom for the modern world every single week. Thanks for watching, and stay steady.